Be careful.
He's and Scott Higgins, both of them coked up out of their minds.
Listen to you. He's down in the basement.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I think we should call this the Acement.
The Acement, yes.
Yeah, what do you think there, huh?
I like that. The Acement Studios.
Excuse me, I'm drinking beer. Hold on a second.
We usually drink bourbon on our end
Yeah,
when we
right.
do the podcast, so
That's all right.
feel free to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, exactly. You shoot an 8-ball if you want. We don't care, as long as it's good stories.
Welcome to the Acement, everybody. It's time to go behind the funny. This is Scott Higgins.
And this is Ace Aceto.
And thanks for joining us. We are excited that you guys are here. We thank you for your support. We thank you for the downloads. We thank you for the 5-star written reviews. You guys are awesome. We got a great bourbon date this week.
Yes, we do. We're switching it up. You've said that you've had this.
I've had their
this
regular
brand.
10-year,
Yep.
Russell's 10-year before. I have not had the reserve. This is the first time.
Well, Russell's Reserve is our bourbon date this week.
And it is quite delicious.
Delicious. We did
very
take
good.
a sip before we went live, and it's good.
So if you want to try a new one, this is Russell's Reserve. It is a straight bourbon whiskey, single barrel, and it is very tasty.
Yeah.
I know Capitol Grille, for instance, one of their signature drinks is called an In Fashion, and they use the Russell's 10-year for that drink.
It's hip and new.
And it's very good.
Yeah.
It's very good. So
I like it. It's very good.
a glass to all of you listening. Thank
Yes.
you for joining us. Hope you guys are enjoying our latest episodes. We've had some newer guys, and I love we've had some, like when we had Roger Cabler on, that was just an amazing episode
was
of a guy
awesome.
that's been around for a while. I like when we get to bring some newer faces.
Yeah.
To bring that aspect because, we talk about back in the day all the time.
Right. And it's nice to hear someone who's coming up now to kind of get the perspective of, is it still sucky trying to get in touch with bookers? Is it any easier now when you're new?
Right,
Or
right.
does it still suck? Do you still get
Well,
ignored? And
They don't have to do the rotary dial phone after 4 o'clock on a Monday to get a
yeah.
hold of Joey for your spots.
Yeah, right,
They can
exactly.
send emails out at least now, but they
Yeah.
still have their challenges that they have to do.
Right.
Cultures, different stuff like that. So we got a newer guy tonight, but who's
Yeah.
done pretty well for himself.
And I'll tell you, I loved working with him. So a couple of months ago, I did a show with our buddy Howie Mason.
I love
who,
Howie.
When he comes on, he always brings us booze.
That's why we love
That's
Howie.
why we love
No,
Howie.
he
We
is
gotta
one-
have him back.
Howie, though, is one of those guys that makes me laugh hard every time I'm with him.
Yes.
He is a funny comic.
Clean, and I love his delivery. And I've said it before. I don't know if you remember. So Howie Mason's from Connecticut. Dave Decker is from Northern Mass, and they both remind me of
Similar
each other
personalities,
because they have
similar
very
deliveries, yep.
similar deliveries, very fast, and then they say something under their breath that's hilarious.
Yeah,
and so
and very likable guys.
and very likable. So a couple of months ago, Howie had me on this fundraiser, and it was me, Howie. God, I can't remember who else there was. There were 4 of us, and I can't remember. Oh, Rhonda Corey, because
Oh, wow.
I made her eat McDonald's that night because we hadn't eaten, and now she blames me.
That's right.
For making her eat junk food at 11 o'clock at night.
Yep.
But what else is open in the middle of
Exactly.
nowhere, Connecticut? You know
Exactly.
So, but this guy was on, and it was the first time working with him, and he's from Connecticut, from Western Connecticut. And he was really, really funny. He very likable. The audience, loved him. And I talked to him that night. I go, dude, you're really good. I got to get you in touch with my buddy Scott because he does stuff, more stuff in Connecticut. And then I asked him about being on the podcast. And as I was trying to line up guests, I ended up, reaching out to him, and he happened to be available tonight. So it was perfect.
And I can tell he's from Western Connecticut because there is a line in Connecticut right through Hartford, right through the center.
Yeah.
And if you're from the west of there, you don't like the Red Sox.
Oh, they think, they're not part of New
No,
England.
no.
Even you used to work for Toyota.
Yep.
Even Toyota's region, the
Yes.
New England region, doesn't include Connecticut.
No, it
Right?
cuts it off. all of the Toyota dealers in Connecticut have to go to New Jersey,
They're part
New
of the
York.
tri-state area.
They're part of the tri-state,
They're like,
and they-
fuck you, New England.
And just before we went on, he talked about how his Blue Jays are losing to the Red Sox because
Right.
he's not a Red Sox
He's
fan.
not a Red
so
Sox
I could
fan.
tell he's from Western Connecticut
yeah,
based
but
on
why
that.
isn't he a Yankees fan? So
But,
we'll have
but
to
he's
dig
still
into
not a
that.
Red Sox fan.
No, that's true. We'll have to dig into that. So we're really excited to bring this guy on. Very, very funny comic. Please welcome to the Behind the Funny podcast, Mr. Paul Taro.
Yeah.
There he is.
Hey, thank you guys.
Studio
Thanks for having me.
audience going
I'm really
crazy.
excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate. So we got to ask the obvious question: why the Blue Jays?
So yeah, I spent about 6 or 7 years there as a child, and I actually have Canadian citizenship, so I'm still.
Oh, really? So you were in
Canadian.
Toronto? You lived in Toronto?
I lived in Toronto. I grew up
Eh?
a lot. I was
Eh?
yeah. I grew up.
Oh, fuck, buddy.
Oh, what are you going to do? A whole episode of Letterkenny now?
No, I'm just going to spend the whole podcast apologizing.
yeah, right.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. You didn't
Sorry.
find that funny.
What's
I'm
that
sorry.
about?
Yeah. So you were probably also happy with the results of the Boston Bruins in the playoffs last week.
So. and
Well,
He's like,
just glanced right over that
He's
real
like,
quick.
I'm
didn't he?
talking to two New Englanders. I got to watch what I say here.
Embarrassingly, I'm not a hockey fan, which everyone. Well, I
What?
mean,
Oh, really?
If you can see my build, I have the Japanese build. I'm half Japanese, but yeah, hockey never got was what became a thing for me.
Really? Even
that's
living
like-
in Toronto.
I was going to say that's a
Toronto.
national sport in
Yeah.
Canada.
It is. But you know what? I think one thing is like growing up the whole time, the Leafs were god awful. Like right,
Yeah.
like the U.S.
Well, it's like
team-
us with it was like us growing up with the Patriots.
They always sucked.
They were always
the
horrible.
entire time.
You know,
we
it
grew
wasn't
up.
until what 2000, 2001.
Right.
The biggest Canadian gripe is that all the best Canadian players went to the U.S. to play hockey.
Yeah.
Right.
And left no one in Canada. So yeah, Blue Jays. I was a Blue Jays guy. You know, I was a diehard fan. Every year we were terrible, and then my dad came into my room one day and was like, "Hey, we're moving to Japan." Moved to Japan, and that year they won the World Series.
Oh, get out.
Yeah,
God.
while I was in Japan.
Now, is your father Japanese or your mom?
Yeah. My dad's Japanese.
wow.
My mom's Irish, like Irish from Northern Ireland.
Wow.
So
So
yeah.
all right.
That's
well, call
that's
me
it. That's interesting culturally.
culturally illiterate because I'm looking at your last name. I'm going, oh, nice Italian kid, Taro. Yeah, I know some Taros.
I was going to say he's going to relate more to you than me.
You are Taro.
Taro.
Taro. Yeah.
That's the thing. By the way, it's funny that you say it that way because every person who finds out, every American guy you talk to who finds out that you're part Japanese automatically starts talking like this.
You have to.
Oh.
Well, I'm doing the Joe Coy
The
bit. No,
stereotypical Japanese accent.
I'm doing the Joe Coy bit where he goes,
Yeah.
Japanese talk from a
diaphragm.
Come from diaphragm.
Yeah,
I
well,
saw
because
that.
all we knew was the guys in Karate Kid.
No,
And
exactly.
that was it.
Like-
or what was the Michael Keaton Gung Ho?
Oh, yeah.
about the car makers. That's the
Yeah.
way they all talked. you
Like
know?
what I bet, one of my best friends here, he lives in DC now, but he would be like, "Hey, Paul, what are you doing for dinner tonight?" I'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to, this yakitori restaurant." He'd be like, "Oh, yakitori!" And I'm just like, why karate, dude? Like, why karate? This has nothing to do, or
all of a sudden he's a Power Ranger.
yeah, exactly. Like, "Oh, Paul, what are you up to this weekend?" "Oh, my dad's flying in from Japan." He'd be like, "Oh, he coming from Japan." Like, he's not going to kill himself, dude. Like,
Oh my God, did he do it in front of your dad?
no, never.
No, never in
my
front of him,
dad.
right? Yeah.
But it was always like my dad's name is Masamitsu, and if I told my friends, "Oh yeah, my dad's coming into town," they'd be like, "Oh, Masamitsu!"
Oh God.
Oh my God.
Your friends are dicks.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh my God.
I'm surprised you're using the word friends.
Yeah, right.
For my birthday, they got me a bag. I'm not kidding you. They got me for my 25th birthday. They got me a bag of fortune cookies. I'm like, guys, you realize those are Chinese, all right? Two different.
And
Oh my God.
Isn't it true that fortune cookies were actually not really
They were
Chinese?
they were invented in America.
Yeah,
There's an
exactly,
American cookie
exactly,
company.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
hilarious.
They're not even truly a
Oh my-
Chinese thing.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Once again, Americans showing how inherently
Stupid
racist,
shit. Yeah,
stupidly
right.
racist we are.
Exactly.
You know.
Well, here I am. I'm thinking, what was your father's first name?
Masamitsu.
Massamito. So I'm making it Italian. It's Massimo Taro.
Hey,
Yeah, you know Massimo Taro.
Hey,
he comes
hey.
from New Haven.
Max
He's on the west
Docelli.
side. Max Docelli.
his first name is
Maximilian.
Massimo.
Oh, it is. Oh, I didn't
Massimo.
know- Oh, I didn't know that.
Massimo Docelli.
Wow.
He's
yeah.
good people. Yeah.
Yeah, he's good people,
Hey,
right? Yeah.
you don't know nothing from nothing with his friends, all right?
That's
Don't
so
worry
funny.
about it. You, Massimito, all the guys from
So-
down the block.
So, how long did you live in Japan after you? So you were in Toronto for 6 or 7 years.
Yes, Toronto
Were you-
for 6-7 years.
and you
Now,
were
how
born
old were
there.
you when you were living there?
So I lived in Japan from when I was 10 until I graduated high school,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went to university in the U.S. And then I went back there to work for a little bit, and then I moved back to New York like 13, 14 years ago.
Do you speak Japanese?
So I tell people
I'm not going to ask you to do it right now.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
curious.
Yeah, just the swear words, like all of us Italian kids.
Yeah. So I would say I'm conversationally fluent. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is when I was working in Japan for a short period of time, I tried to go into a business meeting and I quickly realized that like there's two kinds of Japanese. There's like, yeah, you kind of speak Japanese, and then it's like you don't know shit Japanese.
Right.
And
Well,
that's
I would
kind
think because you spent quite a bit of time there between, your high school years and then
Yeah.
going back for business. You got to know some to be
Did
able
they-
to survive
did
while
they
you're
teach?
there.
Yeah.
Did they teach in Japanese?
So I went to an international school while I was there,
Okay.
which is why probably I blame that on not being fluent. So I knew some
Right.
American. There was this one American family who moved over same time as us, and at the time I felt so bad for them because their parents were like, "Guess what? Like Joe and Bobby Johnson, like you're going into the Japanese public school." And we were all just like, "What, dude? That is torture! Like, are you kidding me? How is that even going to?"
Right.
And but after 5 years, they were like fluent Japanese and like leaving us in the dust.
And
kind
you're
of
still
thing.
learning how to say "I like peanut butter" in Japanese.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
still doing the yakitore. You know?
You're still going, karate! Masumito!
What was that like? What was?
You're imitating your American friends.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah,
Now-
exactly.
Were your parents together? Are they together?
They are together. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
so what was it like for your mom going? So she's Northern Ireland to Toronto
it's a
to
great question.
Japan.
To Japan, yeah.
There were some fireworks. She did not fit in well in that culture. Let me put it that
think
way.
so.
She was. I mean, Irish are loud, short temper.
Yeah.
You know, bull in a china shop.
What the
and-
fuck is that supposed to mean?
Yeah, you're talking to Higgins.
All right?
Oh, Higgins. No,
I'm
no.
75% Irish, you
All right,
motherfucker.
calm
All right.
down. Was she? Is she like Irish, like redhead Irish, freckles, like light skin?
Yeah.
Oh,
like
she must have stood out.
Like we'd be out in a rainstorm and come back, and my mother's burnt. Like
Yeah.
she was.
A
She's
perfect
Irish.
line right
I
there.
forgot the sunscreen again.
Oh, darn it, Paulie. I forgot the sunscreen. There's a lunar eclipse, Paulie. I need the
That's
sunscreen.
crazy. No, I want to learn more. Like, fuck the comedy. What? How did your parents meet?
So that's a good question. So
Now
my
it's
dad-
Ancestry.com podcast all
Yeah,
of a sudden.
exactly.
No, you know what? We talk about this all the time, Paul, not to jump off track here.
We tend to do that.
We do that a lot. This is called Behind the Funny because we want to learn when people go to a comedy show and they see you and they watch you
Yeah,
and they
what's
laugh.
behind that?
Who is this guy that you just saw on stage? And these are all the things that molded you. And whether we like it or not, when we climb on stage, all of these life experiences are what shaped us as comedians.
Right.
And
Right.
what we bring to the stage. So these are the things that made you into who you are. So these are, I like that we're kind of introducing people to who Paul is
off stage.
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
stage, and
We
this
know
is-
you're funny on stage.
right. You're a funny comic. That's
How's he
without
funny?
question.
How's he funny?
I'm just saying the way he makes you laugh.
Yeah, but how's
Funny
he
how?
funny? You
Funny
fucking
how?
said it. How the fuck is he funny?
I'm just the way he tells a story.
No, I don't know. You're the one that's saying it. How the fuck is he funny?
The way he tells a story. I just the way he tells it.
I almost had you.
You did.
I don't know.
Dude, that was-
Henry. You may fold under questioning.
I don't know if you guys have done that before, but that was pretty freaking accurate.
We do
Once
it all
or
the time.
twice. Once or twice.
Not so much on the air, but we do it all the time.
Yeah.
It was
Sorry.
almost too good. I was
Remember,
like,
remember when before we went on and we said we get off on tangents all the time.
yeah.
That's a
I love to
tangent.
get Ace to pull out his impressions. I love
That
to
was
get him
good.
to do that.
That was
That
a
was really
tangent.
good.
So
I'm
again,
totally with you guys because so one thing I like to do as a comedian is like when I see other people perform, like, I got to watch Ace, which was awesome. I think he did a long, 45 minutes or whatever, but you start to kind of piece together people's history, right? And like
where it comes from, right?
Kids, divorce, this, he was playing the trumpet, it was like, there was all this stuff where you try to like learn. And every time you watch them perform, you learn a little bit more.
Yeah.
well, especially as another comedian watching him, we
Yeah.
tend to dissect the jokes a little bit more.
Because we know, all right, this
Right.
is based on their life.
Right. We're peeling away the petals of the flower to get to the stem of what is really there, as comedians. Whereas the crowds, obviously, they're laughing at the joke, and we're like, okay, what's the truth at the bottom of that?
Where's the truth in that joke?
Yeah,
Because every
yeah.
joke has some kernel
truth.
of truth, right?
Right.
Absolutely. Well, that's my upbringing in Japan was actually really important. And I, of course, I would never foresee it, but a lot of my jokes, I like to incorporate, accents and stuff like that. So I do an Indian accent, a Russian accent, Chinese guy, the Spanish guy, because I kind of mirrored these characters out of all of my best friends growing up. My best friend
Right.
was Filipino and Chinese and Indian.
Well, because you were in an international school,
Right.
so
Exactly.
that's where the truth comes
These are the
from.
cultures you were
Exactly.
exposed to when you were in
Yes.
that international
Right.
school. That makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where I started kind of tapping into that and thinking about some funny stories, some funny conversations we had. And we were all speaking English, but everyone was speaking kind of a broken version
A
of their
version
own
of their
English.
English.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Different versions of English.
Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
so to get back, how did your parents meet?
So Masamitsu went from Japan to Florida to study in university there.
The normal route every Japanese,
Japanese
man
man
takes.
goes,
Yeah,
Let's go to
exactly.
Florida.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, now to Florida. That's how we all went.
Yeah.
So his third day in Florida. Okay, Japan's the safest place in the world. Like you could walk down the street 3:00 in the morning. You never look over your shoulder.
Really?
You leave your wallet in an intersection. You come back the next day. It's either
still
there or someone turned it into the local police station with all the cash in it. Like it's
Right.
ridiculous.
Wow.
So my dad, for 28 years, that's all he knew. He moved to Florida,
Florida. Whereabouts?
Tallahassee.
Oh, okay.
He goes to the local laundromat, puts his entire life belongings of clothes into one washing machine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in Florida. So, everyone walks around half naked. So he's wearing these like 1970s Adidas tennis shorts,
Yeah, the tight ones.
the
white.
tight ones,
Yeah.
nothing else, no
Yep.
shirt, no socks, no nothing. He goes out, he like picks up a sandwich, comes back, all of his clothes are gone.
I was gonna say,
Oh my God.
he comes back.
Welcome to America.
He's got a T-shirt left.
yeah, right.
Yeah. So he goes up to the laundromat like manager, and he was just like, in his broken English, he's like, please excuse, my clothing not there, and the guy's just like, and he's like, I think somebody, by accident, and the guy was just like, dude, they're gone, bro.
That happens all the time, buddy.
They're gone.
Welcome to America.
Wow.
Yeah. So he spent his
Wow.
first week in Florida basically no
In tennis
clothes.
shorts. Oh my God.
Oh
Welcome
my
to the US.
God.
Yeah. So anyways, so he eventually, after he got his degree, went to Canada, and he's got his clothes back, went to Canada, And my mother was growing up in Northern Ireland, so there was like a lot of like they call them the troubles, right?
Yes.
So she was like, basically, I got to get the hell out of here. So she and her
Well,
best
Well,
friend.
that was when the
Especially if she grew up in the 70s,
That was when
Northern
the-
Ireland, that was a bad time to be
bad
there.
time.
right
That
wasn't
was
the
a-
IRA.
Yes,
you know,
there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of
bombings and shit
yeah,
like that.
there
I
was a
remember
lot of bad shit going on during the 70s.
Yeah.
Yep.
that was on the
between-
news every night when
Yeah.
we were here. You know.
Yep, exactly. So she got out of there with her best friend. They were like, "Where's the safest place we can go? Canada. Let's go to
Yeah.
Toronto." So they went to Toronto, and then my mom's roommate like came home one day from my mom and her roommate were throwing a little house party in their little apartment in Toronto, and the roommate said to my mom, "Hey, I brought this guy from work. You know, this Japanese dude. He's kind of a dork. Doesn't speak a lot of English, but
Boy, she really sold him.
yeah, she really sold him."
Is that lady your godmother now, or
Actually, yeah, we're still in touch.
still
We're
She-
in
close?
touch.
Wow.
That woman started Match.com.
Yeah. No shit. Right. Yeah.
Are you looking for a dorky
dork?
Asian dude?
Have we got a match for you?
Yeah. Oh
So
my
yeah,
God.
brought home Masamitsu, and then rest is history.
Wow.
And that's how they met. Yeah.
That's actually
awesome.
a cool story. You know, if you think about it, two basically immigrants
Yeah. Yeah.
that were trying to make a better life for themselves, find each other.
One goes to Florida and says, "Fuck America, I'm going to Toronto."
He goes to Florida,
They're
gets
not
all
friendly.
his clothes stolen,
Exactly.
and ends up in Canada.
Yeah.
She is leaving a war-torn country to
Yeah.
go to Canada, and they meet each other. That's
Wow.
actually a pretty cool story.
Now, do you
Yeah.
have any siblings, or is it just you?
Yeah. So I have one brother, and it's
Older or
he's
younger?
older. Physically older.
Mentally, not so much.
Emotionally, he's like 10 years younger than me. But no, so it's funny because he got the more Irish side. He has blonde hair and blue eyes.
Oh, wow.
He got the really Irish side, like white skin. He
Yeah.
burns. Like the whole. He can drink a lot. I can drink nothing.
Other than sake.
And so, yeah, other than okay.
Well, it's funny you say that. Did you ever hear Robin Williams describe? He goes, Japanese people drinking. He goes, when they drink in Japan, he goes, it's like a high school type of drunk. He goes, because they go from during the day, very polite, nice, quiet people,
Yeah.
to singing karaoke at night.
right.
He goes, it's like a high school type of drunk when they drink.
Yeah.
It's so true.
When you talked about that, the difference between like you and your brother, do you know a comedian also he lives in Connecticut now, New York comic, Andrew Kennedy?
No.
Andrew's a great comic. He actually had a CBS sitcom pilot shot based on his life. His mother is from Bogota, Colombia, and his father is from
Great Britain.
Kensington, England.
Yeah.
And his father met his mother when he was selling encyclopedias in Colombia,
Door to door.
door to door.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yes.
You guys should definitely get together because
Yes,
similar
and
stories.
his whole philosophy is don't judge a book by its cover. Because when you look at Andrew, he looks like the picture in the dictionary. If you look up an Irish or an Englishman, white skin,
Blondish
blonde
hair.
hair,
Yeah.
looks like he would burn in a dark room. And then he's got a brother that is as black as Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And he's got another brother that looks Hispanic because of the difference between his parents.
Yeah.
He jokes all the time that when they take a family photo, it looks like a picture of random people at a bus stop. It's just they don't look like they belong together, but that's his
And then
family.
what did he say? He said something about like women would look at his mom and go, "Oh, she married the mister."
Yes.
Yeah.
He goes
Like she
when his
married-
mother would take
the maid would marry
push
the-
him, in the baby stroller when he was a baby, and the other like maids in their community because they lived in New Canaan, Connecticut. They'd be like, "Oh, she married the mister," and she married the mister, and like cops would stop thinking like she was kidnapping
Kidnapping the kid.
the
Yeah,
kid
right.
from of the family she worked for and stuff like that. And he tells a lot of these stories
Yeah.
of the family dynamic, and it is so true. And you have a very similar story,
Yeah.
obviously.
So
because
does he use that in his comedy?
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yeah. And his sitcom was called Related by Marriage. Like Rita Moreno played his mother. Cliff from Cheers.
Oh, I love that guy.
John
John
Ratzenberger,
Ratzenberger.
played his father-in-law.
Oh, the
And
father-in-law,
it was a great. You can find it online and watch the actual episode of the pilot that never got picked up, unfortunately. But it was pretty brilliantly done, and he's done a great job telling the story, and he's hosted like the Hispanic television awards because
Yeah.
he speaks fluent Spanish.
Yeah, right.
Because he goes down to Colombia.
He lives in Connecticut.
Yeah. He lives in Connecticut. And he's a super nice guy. He does
We'll have to hook you guys up.
he does a
'cause
class
you
at
like him.
the Stress Factory down in Bridgeport.
Oh,
he does,
yeah.
He does a lot of cruises. He actually does a lot of cruises, but a similar type of background to what you're talking about that he draws from. So you
Yeah.
got a lot of stuff there to draw from.
And I can't remember. Do you talk about that in your act?
So, I talk a little bit about my parents. It's definitely something I've wanted to kind of dive into more. I definitely focus more on the Japanese side because I think that's the side that's a little bit more unfamiliar to people.
Right.
But my mom certainly. I mean, there's a whole
material there
book
too,
of
right?
material there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Well,
great.
and the thing that surprised me, and because we talked about it that night,
Yeah.
and you've even capitalized on it, but man, you gotta figure out how to do a Nicolas Cage impression because he doesn't look so much like it now, but man, if you saw him in person when he's up on stage, if he could do a Nicolas Cage impersonation, man, you would nail it.
Yeah, I wish I had your impersonation skills with
All
my
right,
face.
we'll do a class. We'll figure it out.
Let me ask you this.
It's really kind of easy to do Nicolas Cage.
That's not too bad.
It's not bad. That's the first time I've ever tried it.
That's not too bad. Let me. That was kind of Nicolas Cage, in Con Air.
Yeah, exactly.
That's Con Air-ish.
I
That
only
era.
I only have one line of his.
Go ahead.
What is
that
it?
I do as part of my set after I do my Nicolas Cage joke, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's I knew this guy from somewhere." And then so I talk about how I don't like his acting that much because he's overacting, and I bust out one line from The Rock where he goes, "I drive a Volvo, a beige one." Like, relax. Everything's so
good.
intense with him.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
But you know
Because
what?
you
What
want to see overacting personified. Watch Face Off.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, him and John Travolta.
Both of them.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
the ultimate overacting.
That was the ultimate.
class.
But what I love about him is he's got a sense of humor about it. Like he did that movie
Oh,
last year, and
with Pedro Pascal.
Pedro Pascal, where Pedro Pascal is like a drug
loved it.
dealer who
Rich
loves
guy
Nicolas Cage
that
and
hires him.
He hires him to come
Yeah.
to his birthday party, and
Yep.
then they go on this adventure. I haven't seen it, but
It
it's
looks
something-
hilarious.
It looks hilarious, and I don't know how it didn't do better.
Now,
But-
let me ask you this, Paul. Obviously, you growing up in Toronto, going to Japan. You got these parents from two different cultures. Where is comedy in all this? Are you, is stand-up comedy like a dream during all this? Is stand-up comedy come later in life to you?
Yeah, like what made you decide to get into comedy?
Yeah, I mean, was it something that when you went to college? Like, where did it come into your life?
So really, I was one of these like late bloomers, right? Everyone's got kind of their different starting points, and I
Right.
think because I lived in Japan for so long, Japan is not a super comical. place.
Knock knock. Who's there?
Masimoto.
Masamoto.
Masamitsu who?
Masamitsu.
Masamitsu
already fucked it up.
Sakatore!
Karate.
You realize he's going to be doing this all night.
Oh, I
We're going
know.
to be at a
Trust me.
restaurant later. He's going to be like,
Yeah, trust me, I'm used to it. And all the stereotypes that I was trying to fight off just like once Karate Kid came out. Right,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Daniel-san.
Daniel-san.
Yeah.
And the fu-
Meanwhile, Pat Morita wasn't even Japanese.
No.
No, exactly. Like, by the way, that shattered my dreams. I know we're going off a tangent here.
That's all right.
but
We
I-
do it.
Oh, yeah.
I-
When you see him in an interview and he's as American as anybody.
Yes. I grew up thinking Mr. Miyagi was like, Dana-san, karate here, karate here. And I was just like, dude, this guy's the shit. And then I heard an interview and he's like, well, actually, I was in Honolulu when I got the audition.
Yeah. He's
And,
more.
He was Pacific Islander.
Yeah,
right.
he's more
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage than you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's like, so I was acting on this movie one time,
Yeah,
right?
I was driving in my Chevy, and my agent said, "Hey, why don't you give this a go?" And I was like, "What? No."
Yeah, right. I know.
They asked me if I knew any karate, and I'm like, I don't. How did you say that? Karate?
Yeah.
Is there an R in that? In karate?
Yeah, it was heartbreaking. But he was a big stand-up comic.
Yes,
Yes.
he was.
Yep.
Yeah, back in the day, he
Yeah.
was a stand-up comic. That's how they found him
Yes.
for
Happy Days.
Happy Days, right? Yeah,
Yes.
because he was a stand-up comic and he was a funny guy, and they wanted someone that was funny to play Arnold.
Yes, and I was actually surprised at how good he was at doing other accents. He would do
Yeah.
like all these different accents, and then it made so much sense to me that he nailed that Japanese role. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
nailed it.
Because he was soft-spoken and respectful, and it wasn't just an accent; it was
No.
the embodiment of
Yes.
a Japanese culture.
Yep,
You know.
100%, 100%.
Oh, so going back to what Scott asked, so like, what made you, want to get into
Yeah.
comedy?
When did you get into stand up?
It was when I moved to the U.S. I was in my late 20s, and I went to the Comedy Cellar, and that was, at 29 years old, that was the first time I've ever been to a comedy show, because I never went to a single show when I was growing up in Japan, and I watched these guys, and I was like, holy shit! Like, this is amazing. Just
And
this
that's-
electric.
Isn't that an
Yeah.
unbelievable place to watch stand up?
Unbelievable.
I remember the first time I went down those stairs and you go in that place
Yeah.
and,
Never been.
and it's so congested.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
and they're right there in front of you and
It's
you watch
intimate.
and you watch these guys get up and work on their material and you don't know who's going to walk in the room at any
Yes.
moment and do a set, and it's a totally different experience than other stand-up shows.
Totally different
I've
experience.
gotten to go twice. I was in New York for my day job, and I said, I'm going to the Cellar. I got to go check this place out. And both times that I went, Colin Quinn happened to show up and
wow.
do spots. And just to watch these guys as stand-ups,
Yeah.
we're watching them, and we know they're working on material.
Right.
And I'm watching their process, and it's like, oh my God, this is like a masterclass.
Well, just knowing how many, like, because it's the Comedy Cellar, knowing how many people have stood on that stage that you look up to, Richard Pryor, George
Yes.
Carlin, going way back. I've never been, and I would love to go there.
That was the first time I saw this guy called Lenny Marcus, who I would love to see more of. He was so hilariously funny. Now, what year was it that you went?
So that had to be when I first went there. I think it was 2010. something
Okay,
around there.
okay.
But when I went, I mean, and because you've seen the room twice, but there's something about that room
Yes.
where it's like you can't escape the laughter. It's
Right.
surrounding
It's
you.
everywhere. Yeah, because it's such
everywhere.
an intimate room, right?
It's so intimate, and the comedian, like, you can touch them. They're like,
Yes.
they're right there, and
I'll be honest.
so-
I have never been there, but I did do Comic Strip Live once, and it was
yeah.
similar.
Yeah.
It was downstairs,
Yep.
very small, very intimate.
That's a New York thing. That's the way the
yeah.
New York clubs are.
Right.
Yep.
Hey.
And then my wife, she's my girlfriend at the time, but I was probably like you guys or any comedians, like, you're good at making your friends laugh and blah, blah, blah. But I'd never thought about, why don't I try to do this with strangers, and
Right.
there was a class, they had mentioned something, or there was a flyer there about a class being offered by Rick Chrome. I don't know if you guys have
Yes.
met.
Yeah, I know who he
Right.
is. He was on Louis' series.
He was on Louis' series.
yeah.
he was actually one of the founding fathers of the Cellar. Like he was one of the early
Really?
guys there. So now, like that voice that you hear when they play, that voice at the beginning, like, "Oh, welcome to the Comedy Cellar,"
Yeah.
blah blah.
That's
Put away
him.
your phones. Like that's him. So he had just started a class that year, and I was literally in his first class.
You took his class?
So I took his class. We
Wow.
became great friends. Like he's one of my, comedy mentors to this day. And, but anyways, he got
Wow, that's an amazing mentor to have.
It was awesome. It was, and I don't think I realized at the time, like how great of a comedian he was. But he let us do, or the Cellar let us do a Sunday night showcase. So at the end of the class, everyone invites 10 of their friends and family. Hey, look at
Yeah,
what
it's
we
a
worked on.
graduation show, right?
Graduation show, and I got to stand on that stage, and to your guys' point, I was like, holy shit, like I'm on this stage and all these guys have, as you guys know, once you get that first laugh,
You're hooked.
That's all it
you're
takes.
hooked. I was like, oh, okay.
Now, where was your first time on stage?
So that's the thing. It was probably 2011 or so. It was around 2011, yeah. And then
And it was at the Cellar.
It was at the Cellar. Was my
Oh
first
my
time.
God, what a
How
great
fucking
place
awesome
for
is
your
that,
first
right?
time on stage.
But it was also a rude awakening where you're like, oh, this isn't what comedy's going to be every week. You're not at the Cellar.
So
Right.
let me ask you this. So your first time on stage, obviously, at a place like the Comedy Cellar is obviously, that's an amazing experience, and obviously it's great. Your second, your third time, there had to be one not too soon afterwards that you were like, what the fuck did I get myself into?
Yeah, why didn't that go as well as the last time?
Because normally the first one, you got people there supporting you. Obviously, you got, the other people that took the class, so they got people supporting them. It's a very supportive environment. Usually, it's like maybe the third or the fourth time when you're just doing an open mic somewhere or something where you
Or a
got
bar
nobody
gig.
with you,
Yeah.
supporting you, where you it doesn't go quite as well. What was that one like? This isn't your funny bad gig story. We're not wrapping it up yet.
no.
I'm just talking about that first
yeah.
time where you you realize that, okay, I got to put some work in.
Yeah, when my friends aren't here, it's not going
Okay,
so well.
it didn't make you want to give up or anything like that. It was just you realized, okay, I got to keep working at this.
Absolutely. So it was actually in Queens. I can't even remember the name of the place.
That's okay.
But I was all excited about it. And to your point, the first few shows I was inviting all these people, so it was very supportive, and it was like, people were laughing, people were clapping,
Right,
enjoying themselves,
right.
and I was like, dude, this is pretty easy, man.
What are people complaining about? This is like shooting fish in a barrel.
Yeah. And then I went to Queens. I did this show. There was probably 6 people there.
Yep.
2 of them were the waitress, and then the 4 of them were sitting there, and they were just staring up at me. And I did my first joke, and it was just straight face right back at me.
Yep.
Did my second joke, straight face.
Yep.
Did my third joke. 3 of the 4 got up and left.
Yep.
You
And
walked the room.
Yeah. I was just standing there with a mic, effectively talking to one person, now, which
who
is the
felt bad for
loneliest
you.
feeling on the planet.
But see, we've talked about this before. That's the difference between someone who tries comedy and someone who is truly a comedian. You are truly a comedian if you get off that stage after that shit gig and you go, I know I can do better. I know I can do better.
Something
than that.
makes you have to go back.
You have to get back on stage because you're like, I know I can do better. If you do great, you're like, oh my God, I love this. It's like crack. I got to get back up on stage. But it's harder to have a bad set and say, nope, I need to get back up on stage because I know I can do better.
Now, Paul, this past year we had a guy on, Mitch Stinson, that I started with. And Mitch is one of 4 people that I started with that's still doing comedy.
Yeah.
There was 12 of us that used to go every Wednesday night to this same open mic night. We'd go every single week for probably close to 2 years.
Right.
We went to the same open mic every week.
station?
Yep. All 12 of us. And it was such a great environment because we'd all get up, do our spots.
supportive, yeah.
Afterwards, people would say, hey, that new joke you did was great. Hey, did you ever think of this? I mean, it was great feedback. It was always awesome. But out of the 12, there's only 4 that are still doing it on a regular basis. The other 8 pretty much stopped.
Yep.
You know, and we talk about that all the time. We talk about, your class. Because when you started back then, there was a group of people that you saw on a regular basis. But out of those, how many are still doing comedy today?
Yeah. It's probably 10%.
Right.
And I think what happens is the system chews you up and
It's
and
tough.
spits you out, right?
Yeah.
Because there's
It's
only
tough.
so many of those shows that you can take before you're either A, like, maybe I'm not that good, or
Yep.
B, this is just too depressing to continue doing.
Yeah, you become disillusioned, and you're like, I can't.
The
for
shows-
my own mental health, I can't do
Yeah.
this
Right.
anymore.
The shows themselves are tough enough. The rejection when you're not doing well on the shows themselves are tough enough. But
Yeah.
then the rejection from trying to get booked for spots
Yeah.
and dealing with that side of it, the business side of it, can beat the shit out of you as well.
Absolutely.
So you have to have fortitude to fight through that. You have to love this enough that you're like, I don't care.
Yep.
I'm gonna keep pressing on, and I'm gonna get on stage, and I'm gonna keep doing my stuff.
Right.
And there are 2 things that happen. One, you get better. You work. You get better spots. You move up. You keep climbing the ladder. And then we know some people that have been doing it for 35 years.
Still plugging away and not getting
They
laughs. I don't know how the
never
hell
got
they do
any
it.
better. And my God, they still, I give them credit.
I respect them so much.
I give
because
them credit. They
I could
never gave up.
do it. I couldn't.
I mean, there are times now where I have a bad set where I go, well, maybe it's run its course.
Yeah.
Maybe I did the best I could, but I realized one show does not define you.
Right.
Yeah.
But 17 shows.
But when I see a guy that when I see a guy that I've never seen do a good show ever in the 22 years that I've been doing this, it's like, dude.
Well, I think it helps to have try to be as objective as possible about your performance, but it's easier said than done, and that's taken me years because I feel like it's personal, right? Everything's personal. Like you wrote the joke, you are putting yourself out there. It's very personal, but I used to get up on stage and I tell this joke, and then my initial reaction after the show would be, they didn't get the joke. And then, there's a certain point where you got to change that mentality from, it's not that they didn't get the joke. It's that the joke's not funny.
I didn't deliver it the right way to get the laugh. Because listen, I've done jokes where, and I don't understand why. As I'm doing the joke, I'm in my head. Last week it happened to me. I did a joke that I do all the time. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I changed the delivery on that. Oh, they laughed a little harder at that. I need to figure out how to deliver that consistently like that because it'll work more, And it's an inflection on one word, or it's something really, really stupid, or I let my voice crack, where you let your voice crack at some point where you're saying something and you go like that.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that makes them laugh at that point.
Well,
Just
there is acting involved with this too. When I'm doing a joke about being frustrated, if, like you said, my voice becomes cracks.
Crack your voice because it shows the frustration.
Or I'm letting the frustration build and my voice changes.
Yeah.
Or when I'm nervous and I let my voice change, I'm like this,
Yeah.
type of thing.
Yeah, you're whining about it. Yeah.
Stuff like that. That adds to the joke, and
that can make all the difference.
Exactly.
Right.
Sometimes the delivery, makes the joke that much better. Sometimes, and Seinfeld explained it great in his documentary Comedian, he goes, sometimes there's a joke you love, but it just doesn't
just
work.
never
And
works.
it's like a baby bird. He goes, you push it out of the nest and it falls right to the ground. And you pick it up and you put more feathers on it.
The worst-
And you
yeah.
you train it and you push it out of the nest again and it falls right to the ground. And no matter what you do, he goes, that fucking joke just won't fly.
Because
he goes, some jokes just aren't meant to fly.
Because
it just
the
happens.
problem is there are certain jokes where the premise is hilarious and you could just
Yes.
never find the way to deliver it to
And-
make it funny. Because I've had jokes that didn't work, but if I say to someone, hey, here's a premise for a joke, they're like, that's really funny. I'm like, I've tried 5 different ways of presenting that, and none of them work. I can't figure out how to
So
word
true.
it.
It's so
know?
funny you say that, and Paul, this episode's about you, not about us. But
No, this is interesting.
I finally last weekend, I have a joke I've been doing for a year now, that when I'm doing the setup gets a huge laugh. And I've tried literally for a year now
To get that
3
laugh on the
dozen
punchline.
different punchlines.
Yeah.
And it falls off. It still gets a laugh, but it just kind of falls off. It doesn't get the same laugh that the setup gets.
Yeah.
So I decided I did the setup and I just did a quick line at the end last weekend, both Friday and Saturday night, and got a huge laugh. And I just let it live in the laugh that it got at that moment instead of, why do I have to add something to it?
No.
Yeah.
You got the laugh.
I felt the need to add something
You
to
didn't
it.
realize that the setup was the punchline.
Right, exactly.
Right.
I felt the need to finish something that didn't need to be finished.
You know what it is? Because sometimes, because we think you need a setup and a punchline. And we've talked about this when people say, oh, my friends think I'm funny.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, your friends think you're funny because they already know the setup. So you just have to deliver the punchline. You didn't realize you were having that experience. Everyone's already on board with you. So while you're doing the setup, they already know that. Your setup ends up becoming the punchline because they're all already on board with you.
Yeah.
I somewhat knew that, but I still felt like it was incomplete.
It needed to be structured.
It needed
Yeah.
something to finish it, but it really didn't.
Yeah.
And both nights I said, I'm not going to finish it. I'm just going to stop where
Yeah.
it gets the big laugh and move on.
Yep.
And it works fine.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
maybe that's your new punchline.
So I'm just
Right.
gonna let it live in that moment and let it have that big laugh.
Exactly.
And just move on from there and not feel I need to finish it. And
Right.
it'll probably be fine.
I think
know-
Ace, what you mentioned is one of the most frustrating parts for me, anyways, is when you know you have a great concept
Yes.
and you run it by,
And you tell people, and they're
Yeah.
like, "That's funny,"
people are like,
but
"Oh, that's
when
gonna
you-
kill."
but you're trying to deliver it, and you cannot figure
Yeah.
out how to
Yeah.
deliver it.
How many times do you guys give yourself before you fire the joke?
Oh,
And
you
you're
know
7.
what? Yeah. See, he's got a more
Wow.
regimented way.
7 times.
I will still, to this day, try and pull out old jokes that didn't work just to see if they would work. Because
no-
in the in
and
the moment, like listen, it's stupid concepts. You know what I mean? Like I've had this idea of, all right, so we all know if a black cat crosses your path, you have bad luck. But if you're behind the guy that the black cat crosses, do you have half the bad luck? Like it's a stupid fucking premise, but it's kind of funny. But I can't figure out how to
And it also
deliver that.
and it also depends because like last summer, Ace and I, when we were doing the podcast and we talked about some open mics because summer's slow.
Yeah.
So we said, fuck it, let's go do some open mics. And we kind of challenged each other to do some old material, some new material, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Ace broke out a couple of old bits.
Oh yeah. That you know what? They weren't old bits that I retired because they got old. They were old bits because I retired them. Because when you get hired to do 45 minutes, but you have an hour and a half of material, you just cut it because of time.
Right. He just
Yeah,
hadn't
yeah.
done them in a while.
Yeah.
And he brought them back. And there was one night he was kind of thrown into the fire to make a short story long.
Yeah.
He showed up at this open mic and literally he was walking in the door and the guy introduced him and said, "And now your next comic, Ace Aceto," as he's walking in the door.
Like-
he had no time to
You
prepare.
didn't even know I was really fucking there, and you
The
introduced
the
me.
host barely knew he was walking in the room.
Right.
Ace walks up And to his credit, he didn't try to do I'm going to win him over with some old stuff. I'm going to do some proven stuff. He did all this shit he hadn't done in a while, and it all worked. And he was loose and relaxed, and he did this stuff. And, at first, myself and Rhonda Corey, our friend, both at this show, are dying laughing because he's thrown into
They're
this
waiting for me to fail.
because we want him to bomb.
Yeah.
We
'Cause
want
that's what we love, our friends to bomb, right?
we're sitting in the corner like I could totally go up right now and say no, I'll go up. Give him a time to relax. But we're like, no, fuck that. Let him go up and struggle
Let's
with
see
it.
him
Out.
squirm.
Yeah, let's see him bomb for a minute.
You start heckling him.
No, we didn't. We're just like, let him squirm up there for a few minutes. But he totally did well with it. And he pulled out this old material that I hadn't really heard him do before and did great with it. And I loved every second of it. I totally enjoyed watching him. I could tell it wasn't his normal stuff because he was still kind of going through his mind,
Trying to
putting it
think of it,
together, kind of. He didn't have the timing quite down because I know his act pretty good, and he was putting it together, and he did really well with it and everything, and it was so much fun. And I hope we get a chance to do that again this summer.
I
Is to
would
kind
love
of push each other and try to do different stuff because I got a few new bits out of it. When we got to the busy season of the fall and everything like that. Now, when you walk up on stage, do you have a plan set, or do you kind of feel what the crowd gives you, or how do you kind of plan out what you're going to do when you walk up on stage?
Yeah, it's a good question. I typically have like a general plan, right? And then I kind of have if the crowd is a little bit more risque, I'll go with these, several jokes.
So you can customize it depending on what the crowd
I can kind of customize it. I also assuming if I'm not going first, I like to pay attention to the other comics and what's hitting.
Smart.
See what hits for them.
Very
Right.
smart.
Do these guys like dad
Very
jokes?
smart.
Do they like, jokes about your kids, or do they like jokes about marriage? And every crowd's different. So that's kind of how I play it. I try to, the jokes that I'm doing, if I'm performing closer to the city, young, 20 to 30 crowd versus like if you're out in Connecticut doing a fundraiser,
A VFW hall with 50 to 60-year-olds. It's different.
Right.
Oh, it's definitely different. Right.
That's right in my wheelhouse
Yeah.
right there.
Oh, that's my fucking.
I
that's
remember-
my crowd.
Ace, remember when we, this was my first experience with you, and it was hilarious because, so we were about to go on, and Howie goes, all right, guys, it's got to be relatively clean. Okay.
Mhm.
And, there's this one family here, like they like clean show, and everyone kind of looks to them for approval. So you got to make sure. And so all of a sudden, I'm kind of like, I'm going through my checklist. I'm like, all right, well, that's out. That joke's out. Okay, I can't do that one. And then, so I kind of carefully navigated through it, just knowing that this couple was like, had their eyes on me the whole time. And of course, Rhonda is like very clean. And then Ace got up and he was just like, woo, like, it was just like, I was like looking at Ace and I was like, are we doing the same show? Like, what just happened?
I'm doing my Valtrex joke. I've got herpes, and they're laughing, and that couple was laughing. It was like,
you know what's amazing?
He killed it, and I was just like, all right, well, I clearly went too conservative on this one here.
You know what you find out, Paul, when you've been doing this for a while is 9 times out of 10, shows like that, it's the person that booked the show that is all worried and conservative.
Be clean. We've got
not the crowd.
We've got a Christian family. But what happens is, because I've been doing it for a while, I feel there's certain jokes in my act, and I couldn't even tell you what they are. Like if you said, what are your test jokes? There's certain jokes in my act where in my head, if I do them and they go well, then I know, okay, I can go a little further.
Yeah, okay. So you
know
test
what
the
I mean?
waters.
You test the waters, but I couldn't even tell you what those jokes are. Really, I can't.
Now, last Saturday night, I had a show that for me was a nerve-wracking show. My wife and her brother and his wife came to the show.
Okay.
My wife is very, very liberal and very woke,
Okay.
which is fine. I respect that. That's, you know, she's a school teacher who is you know, her students love her. She's very supportive. She's been doing it for 33 years. She's awesome. But I do some things that push the envelope a little bit.
Okay.
But in that situation, as a comedian, when you walk out, do you adjust your act, or do you not adjust your act? You know, so I was like, no, I'm
doing my act.
I have an act. I'm going to do my act. And I have one joke that's somewhat of a transgender joke.
Okay.
It's not bad. It's not you
No,
know the joke I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's not really bad. It's more about me than anything
Right,
else.
you're turning it on yourself that you're the idiot.
You know, well, you know, people are listening, so I should say I basically say that I have 3 daughters and they're all adults, and when you have adult daughters, people say to you all the time, you know, oh my God, you're going to have 3 weddings to pay for. I'm like, really? It's 2023. There's no guarantee they'll all stay girls. You know,
Now,
and
did you do that joke?
Yeah, I did it. I didn't. I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm
he's-
hired to do my act.
Just so you know, he's sleeping here tonight because his wife threw him out.
I've been here. I've been here since
He's been
Sunday.
here since Sunday.
And then I go, you know, and then I say to the crowd, because, you know, I'm just saying I might get out of at least one, and if they're lesbian, you only have to pay half on those, right? Isn't that the rule? I don't. You go Dutch. I don't know what the rule is. I haven't read the handbook
Halfsies.
yet.
Now, how
I'm
does
like,
your
no.
wife?
And I say to the crowd, I go, no. But the important thing is, I've told my kids since day one, it's so hard to live in this world as it is. So whoever you are in your heart, in your soul, be that person. Be true to yourself. And I love you no matter what. I got your back no matter what. And if that person, who you are in your heart and your soul, when you're true to yourself, you know, be that person, and I got your back, saves me money, fucking bonus.
right. Right.
Now,
You
how
know,
does that-
she was fine with it. She was
okay,
fine with it. You know, afterwards, you know, because, you know, and actually, as we drove home, you know, I said to her, I go, what'd you think?
Yeah.
I just said it that way. She goes, I gotta say, because she hasn't seen me in like 5 years.
Right.
She goes, I thought you had a better command of the stage than I've ever seen you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because she hasn't seen you in 5 years.
Because she hasn't seen me in 5
Yeah.
years. And honestly, I was more nervous asking
About her.
that
Right.
question
Yeah. Right.
than I have anybody that's seen my act
Right.
Yeah.
in the last 20 years.
it matters a lot.
We got some feedback from some people?
No, I don't mean to interrupt, but we got some comments that came in. So Vin Jack Voney Jr., hey you guys, which is his usual tagline. Vin is if you've trying to think, have you done any any Funny for Fun shows?
No.
Because we got to get you on some.
Vinny
Vin
is
he's like the graphics guy for.
Vinny is the
for us.
lifeblood of a lot of Funny for Funs.
Yeah.
He's done my website. He's done Stephanie Peters, who I worked with last weekend. He built her website.
Yeah.
If anybody out there needs a website, check
Vin-
out what Vinny has done, because he is an incredible web designer.
Yeah,
So,
so he's a solid listener of the show. Karen Leochi, who we've had on.
Oh, Karen,
Yep.
thank you for joining us,
said,
Karen.
Massimo Taro, perfect. So these were from a while ago.
Karen's awesome.
Karen then said, "Fantastic, Paul. You lived in Japan." Then Vin said, "Funny and furious Tokyo Drift."
Oh,
And then I honestly don't know who Emma was, and I don't know where this question came from, but I'm gonna post it. If you could choose any celebrity to see get tickled, who would it be?
What the fuck does that
I have
mean?
no idea. I don't even know if she's still watching, but Paul, we'll throw that one to you. So if you could see any celebrity get tickled, who would it be?
I mean, I don't even know how to think about this question.
I would say Johnny
mean-
Carson.
Well, Johnny Carson, but if you want,
That's mine.
we could go with I would go with James Caan, just because in the movie Elf, Will Ferrell says tickle fight and starts tickling him, and he gets pissed off. So
or I would say Carol Burnett.
Carol Burnett,
Only
yes.
because I was watching
It was
some bloopers from the Carol Burnett show today.
yeah,
And let me tell you, people talk
I
about
love her.
funny comedians. Tim Conway, one of the
Oh,
funniest
my God.
people on the planet ever.
oh yeah. Well, and we have to mention Carol Burnett because her 90th birthday just happened, and there's a
And
big
she was
show
just
that
in
happened.
Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul.
That's
Yep,
awesome.
she played an amazing part of
She
that.
was actually
so.
really good in that.
I think I'd have to go with Clint Eastwood.
Oh,
Really?
That'd be funny.
Just
Would
because,
he even laugh, though?
Yeah, that's what
No.
I'm saying. His laugh.
Well,
would be
James
like,
Caan didn't laugh. He got pissed off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
Look
be
at you,
good.
Michael.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you get up real close and
Hey,
boom, all over your
boom,
Ivy
all over
League
the
suit,
Ivy League
Michael.
suit. Yeah. No,
He's
but,
fucking guy over here.
But I love when the Irish guy tries to talk fucking Italian all the time. It's funny. It's cute.
James Caan was not
Yeah, but you're not either.
Italian.
Yeah, I know. But you're Irish.
But he was Irish.
All right.
Acting Italian.
Anyway, Paul, let's talk about what are some of your like wow moments that you've had so far. So how long have you been doing
comedy? Yeah.
So when I started in 2011, but then when my son was born, I basically took a break from it. So if
Oh, fucking excuse.
Yeah, fucking kids.
probably I would say 6 years ish. I would say.
Okay.
Okay.
7 years. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in that 6-7 years, what were some of those big moments that you were like, holy shit, I can't believe I have the opportunity to work with this guy or
Yeah.
I'm on this stage
or perform at
Yeah.
this place?
You know, I'll tell you this. I have loved doing comedy out here in Connecticut and Massachusetts and
Yeah.
because so when I was in the city doing comedy, like, you know, especially when you're not making it yet, you're doing like 3, 4, 5 minute sets, right? I mean, your jokes you barely have time to breathe. If you want to get all your jokes out, you're like, blah, 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 you know, but when you started doing it out in Connecticut and Mass and
And you're
wherever,
given
like,
that more that 10 to 15 minute time chunk.
10 to
Yeah.
15, and then you could prove yourself. Oh, this guy has got a set. You know, let's give him 20. Let's
Yeah.
have him feature or headline. All of a sudden, you're doing 30, 40 minutes, and it's an entirely different experience. You know, so that's been cool. But I would say the craziest moment that I had with comedy was when I was in the city. I had been doing it for about 1 year, so like I knew what I was doing, but I still was very green. I went to Gotham and I got a spot at Gotham Comedy Club, right? And
Yeah.
they were like, okay, Paul, you're on fourth. They gave you the lineup. So the guy number 3 is on. So I kind of go to the waiting position there, and I'm kind of, all right, getting myself kind of pumped up. All right, let's go. And the booker comes up to me, and he was just like, you're going 5th now. And I was just like, okay.
Okay, yeah,
And he
got
just
bumped
walked
one.
off. Yeah.
He didn't tell you who was before you.
In walks Jim Gaffigan. Like he looked like he just rolled out of bed with a
Familiar
notepad,
story.
Yep.
Uh, and he was clearly there just to work out some material. And he goes on, and he's got this yellow notepad on the stool.
Yeah.
He murders this crowd
Yep.
for 25 minutes. People were literally like falling off their
With
chairs.
brand new material.
Yeah,
Right.
that's easy.
And then he just walks out. He's just like, yeah, thanks for the spot. And he just like walks out, gets in a cab. And then they're like, yeah, come into the stage. You've seen this guy everywhere.
You've seen him in The Rock.
You've seen
Oh
him
no,
in
it's not Nick
Face Off.
Cage. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Here's your next 7 minutes of entertainment from Paul Taro. I get up. Half the audience got up to go like to the bathroom.
Yeah,
Everyone's
right.
ordering
Oh, yeah.
mozzarella sticks, and I'm just up there like I mean, it was brutal, but it was also awesome because I went home and I told my girlfriend, I was like, dude, I got to follow Jim Gaffigan. It was horrible,
Right.
but it was also so cool.
Yeah. We've got a buddy of ours who that happened to one night when he was at Gotham, actually.
Except he got bumped
Except for
by
he
two
got bumped by
people.
2, Jim Gaffigan and Jerry Seinfeld, and
Oh,
then he
jeez.
had to go up, and he literally did 6 minutes of shitting on the fact that he had to follow Gaffigan and Seinfeld,
And
and
he
it's
blew up-
on YouTube and it's blown up
Are you
because
serious?
oh yeah,
Oh yeah, because he blew up the room,
Yeah. They
shitting on
laughed.
himself for
Yeah.
having to follow the two biggest comedians in the world.
yeah.
That's awesome. What's his name?
Oh yeah, Brad Pierce.
Yeah,
Oh,
Brad
I
Pierce.
gotta look that up.
You got to
I
look up Brad Pierce. Follows
Because he says to the
Seinfeld
crowd,
and
he goes,
Gaffigan.
"Oh yeah, I gotta follow the two biggest comedians on the planet." And you guys are looking at some fucking asshole from Rhode Island.
From Rhode Island.
That now has to
I
walk
only-
up here.
I only drove here 3 hours to
Yeah.
get here to get bumped by Gaffigan and fucking Seinfeld. And yeah, this is great. My career's really going to take off after this. I don't even know what to fucking tell you people. You know, he was just...
He just
Good
shit
for-
on
good for
himself
him,
for
though.
4
Oh,
minutes.
he shit
and
on
it-
himself.
And it blew up.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah,
for
you gotta
him,
look
though.
it
I mean,
up.
that was smart.
Oh,
Hell
yeah.
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 And that's I think that's one other thing about comedy that people maybe underestimate is that like when you get up there, there's so many different factors that you gotta be
Allow
flexible
for. Yeah,
and,
right.
and go on the fly, right? And it's like, oh, this person's talking, this
Yep.
waitress dropped all this food, or like someone's being belligerent, or like
Yeah.
you know, you got bumped off by Jim Gaffigan. It's like there's all these
Right.
things that you gotta react, you know,
And overcome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, what's his name?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, you know who I'm
Yeah,
fucking
you know
talking
that guy.
about.
That fucking guy.
Who passed away. Very
Which
young.
one? There's a bunch of them. Hey, you
I
mean
can't
Norm
think about
Macdonald?
it now.
Hey, tell me-
I posted his stuff today.
Hey, you talking about Norm Macdonald? That's kind of fucking gay.
I fucking love his Norm.
Hey, you know, the thing about that Cosby guy is, you know, everyone said that, you know, yeah, the worst thing about Cosby was the hypocrisy. I don't think that was the worst thing. I think it was the raping.
Sorry, I go into that every once in a while. And Scott loves it.
I love his Norm.
I gotta get your tips on impersonating. That's
Yeah, we got to work on that.
Dude,
Nicolas Cage.
Impersonations, you can either do them or you can't. There's
Yeah, but
no in between.
we can work on it. We can work on that Nick Cage. If you could only do just Nick Cage, you'll be great.
that's all I need. That's all
No,
I need
Bill,
And then if you could work on the John Travolta,
to do the face off.
then you could do the face.
Oh,
off,
my God,
Where you have
that
the
would
face
be-
of Nick Cage, but the voice of John
That
Travolta.
would be
'Cause listen,
hilarious.
John Travolta's easy. There's two versions of John
you're
Travolta.
gonna die. You're gonna crack
Yeah,
up,
exactly. There's like the
right? Hey, Mr. Carter.
Hey, Mr. Carter, you know, I got a question for you. And then there's the older and more, you know,
Refined.
refined version of you know, John Travolta, where he's quiet and soft.
I can't do that, but I can do like the Mr. Carter.
Yeah, the mini Vinny Barbarino. Yeah,
I said the
I
ba
know.
ba ba.
All right.
ba,
Anyway,
Barbarino.
so Paul, I'm gonna cut him off, not you.
No, but what
And-
I was going to say about Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks,
Oh,
one
Bill
of his
Hicks.
one of his things that he said
Yeah.
was material. Comedy material is what you fall back on when you have nothing to say when you're on stage.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Because he felt material is what you have in the bank.
Right.
He felt when you go on stage, you should just freeform.
Riff. Right.
You should
Well, but-
riff,
but
and
for
then you
him, it
use
worked.
you use your material to fill in the empty spaces when you have nothing to talk about. But that was his style.
Right.
Yep. That's
You
I mean
know.
it's a good plan, right? Because so when I've started I have my own show in Stanford now, which I'd love to have you guys on, by the way, if you guys are willing to drive that distance.
Hey, summer anything's possible.
Yeah. Right.
It's a really fun room, actually.
What night of the week?
If I can give it a quick plug here.
Yeah.
But it's usually on Friday or Saturday nights.
Yeah.
It seats about 70, and
cool.
it's on the main strip in Stanford. It's like one of those rooms that just for whatever reason, the comedy works. It's like a charming, snug room.
Most important thing: do you feed the comics?
We feed the comics. You know,
I did this gig the other night. There was a big buffet table. Wasn't even open to the comics.
We have a friend of ours that when
That's how he judges a
when
gig.
we judge what a good or bad gig is whether they feed the comics or
Yeah.
not.
It's so true. People don't understand, especially when you're starting out, is how many times your payment is like getting fed.
Yes.
Right. Oh, yeah.
yes, it's so true.
You know? Like there was a bit that I had about how a financial advisor was like, you want to take a bit of each paycheck and put it into a 401k. And I'm like, how do you put a mozzarella stick into a 401k?
Into a 401k. That's a great joke. And it's so true.
Yeah, you should tell that on stage.
Yeah. That's funny.
Right now, my 401k is up to 72 mozzarella sticks.
Yeah. And 3 potato skins.
And 3 potato skins, and I think I got 4 chicken wings. In
Yeah.
there, too.
Yeah.
Got a couple of chicken fingers, yeah. But yeah, like in that room, I get to host a lot, which is I'm kind of working on like the crowd work and stuff. But
Right.
one thing that I found is successful is like, when you approach someone in the crowd about a topic, you have to have something behind that, because
Yes.
if
Right.
they give you
Can't
the
just
most
be the topic.
boring answer ever, hey, where are you from? Around here. Oh, cool.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Where do you go with that?
Yeah. Is this your husband? Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to have material behind
Yeah.
it and be like, all right, let's talk about marriage. Let's talk about this or that.
Right.
But other times it takes you places because they give you some funky answer.
Material to go
Well,
with. Right. Right.
And again, to go back to Bill Hicks, and Steve Martin said the same thing, that most comedians waste the most important part of the show. When they walk out on stage, they'll always go, how's everyone doing tonight?
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And really, you could use that point to tell a joke, to start setting up your first joke, to do something with that moment. But instead, a lot of people feel the need to be like, hey, how's everyone doing tonight? You guys having a good time? Just such generic bullshit we do in that
that's
moment.
when you're new. You're just trying to get on their good
But
side.
even
and that's
seasoned
how you
guys will
it.
do that.
Oh yeah, I know.
Or how many seasoned guys do you know that they're halfway through their set and they'll go, so you guys having a good time?
Yeah.
Well, the only time I'll do that, I will admit, I do that sometimes when I'm towards the end of my set and I'm almost at time and I'm probably going to go over if I go into this next joke.
That's different.
So I'll say, you guys
That's
still having a good time? You still with me? And then I'll say it. And then I'll go back.
If you're
into
going
that
long,
joke. Yeah,
that's
because I'm
different.
going to go long. Exactly. That's the only time.
When
I'll
guys
do
are
it.
20 minutes into their 40-minute set and they're
Right.
already saying,
Yeah, they're
are you
looking
having
for,
a good time?
They're looking for self-validation.
Ugh.
That's why.
That's
why.
Yeah. Yeah.
So listen, we've talked about high points. We talked about you growing up. We always like to wrap up the show with a funny bad gig story. And this is the gig that wasn't funny the night of.
Not at
It
all.
made you question whether or not you wanted to continue doing comedy. But the further away you get from that night, you start telling war stories. Like we all tell war stories in the green room about shitty gigs.
Yeah.
But we're doing it to make the other comics laugh. Because,
Your one-up story.
Yeah, because
Sure.
we want to make each other laugh, and we're like, oh, you think that's bad? Listen to this.
Sure. So I would say mine is, I don't know if it's the funniest story, but it's definitely.
Doesn't have to be funny. Just
It's
has to be
definitely
bad.
unique,
Even if it's
I would
painful.
say. So there was a show that I did, and I was actually back in Japan. And so a buddy of mine, this American guy, and I had been doing it a couple of years, and he's like, oh, you know what, you should do this, right? It'd be fun. Like you're here. And I was, visiting family or whatever.
Yep.
So he got a group of people together because he worked at this bar. And there's kind of in Tokyo, there's like the very domestic community who doesn't speak any English. And then there's like the more international crowd is like they're, learning the language or learning English and whatever. So I show up. There's a band that plays before me. And then they're like, okay, we're going to get Paul. He's a comedian, tell some jokes. So I got up there, 10 minutes. I'm telling jokes. No one moves a muscle. It's crickets. I am bombing for like 10 minutes. These guys are just looking at me. And in Japan, everyone's too polite that like, if they didn't like the show, no one would boo. No one would. Everyone would just sit there until it's over, patiently just waiting until they can go.
And suffering through your act.
Just
quietly.
Just quietly.
Not like that lady at your gig last week who yelled shit out. Right.
Yeah, they won't yell anything out. So I'm just I'm just talking, and I'm just like, God, this can't end soon enough. And I ended on the Nicolas Cage joke. And
Yep.
right as I said Nicolas Cage, the whole room was like, Nicolas Cage! Yeah! And I
Because
only
they
realized-
were. That's what happened. They couldn't focus on your jokes because they were so preoccupied with how much you look like Nicolas Cage.
they couldn't focus on my jokes because no one spoke English. That's what it turned out to be. Everyone in that room, no one spoke a word of
You
English.
weren't
But,
in the international crowd. You were in
Exactly.
the local crowd.
but as soon as I said Nicolas Cage,
He said Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas
Oh,
Cage.
Nicolas
Oh,
Cage.
very funny.
Massimo Taro, yeah! Karate!
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Oh, yes, Paulson. He said Nicolas Cage.
I don't understand anything else from his act, but the Nicolas Cage joke
I love Nicolas Cage.
that crushed. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that must have been so horrible for you.
Yeah, it was. That was not pleasant. But you know what? They were all like lighthearted about it and everything. But it was just.
Yeah.
I just thought to myself as well. Like it's so Japanese to just suffer, as you
Sit
said,
and suffer.
suffer through a 15-minute set. Imagine someone coming up
Not-
to you. Imagine a Japanese comic.
Yeah,
all right,
just
in
doing
Rhode Island.
Japanese
Just
material.
doing Japanese material for
15
15 minutes.
minutes.
And you guys just sitting there suffering. No, it'd be like within
And
30
he goes-
seconds, someone would be like, I don't fucking understand
Yeah.
this guy.
And then someone says, and then he's up on stage, and you don't understand anything, but he says, Bruce Lee. Fucking guy looks like Bruce Lee. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Well, I think it was Huey Lewis said one time in an interview, the first time that they did Japan, he goes, the entire audience,
They're polite.
jump in time with the music. The second the song stops, they all sit down.
Yeah.
He goes, then the next song starts, and they all stand up, and they jump in time with the music.
Yeah.
Song stops, they all sit down. He goes, and when the concert's over, they leave in order. He goes, like the first
one row at a
row
time.
leaves, the second row leaves. He goes, it's the weirdest thing. The first
Yeah.
time
You don't realize,
go to Japan.
Right. You don't
It's so
realize
true.
just the cultural differences.
Right.
It's
That's
so true. And
crazy.
you know, I don't know if you guys have seen this. It's great YouTube entertainment, or any of the listeners listening. Look up on YouTube Japanese people getting pushed onto trains. So the trains get so crowded
Yeah.
that they have full-time staff that
push
shove
people in.
people onto trains that you think could not fit like a piece of asparagus on, and
Oh
they
my
are
God,
just
that's
shoving people.
awesome.
And the thing is, no one questions it. And
So
my
the
first time on it-
staff push the people onto the trains.
so
to
imagine
pack
like
them
imagine like the Metro North or whatever, and it's just so crowded that there's people outside shoving
more
and,
people
and the
in.
passengers are just
So the
Like-
T in Boston, dude, get on the fucking train.
yeah.
You what the fuck are you waiting for? Get on the fucking train.
Tuck your
Yeah.
fucking ass in, asshole.
Grab your fucking bag and get on the fucking train.
Oh my God.
But the level of just acceptance of like,
Yeah,
yep,
right.
This is
And they're
this
just
how
Just the
we're
way it
getting
is.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the way it is.
Wow.
That's
Holy shit.
that's
This was
crazy.
awesome, man. I'm so glad we had you on.
No, I had a
'cause,
ton of fun. You
I
guys
knew
were awesome.
you were going to be a great guest. but
Very
I
interesting
didn't know
stuff.
a lot about you. with
Very
the,
interesting stuff.
Your background, and that was just awesome. I hope. So, what can we plug for you?
Oh, just whatever. My name.
My name.
Massimo.
I love,
Massimo.
comedians are the worst
Yeah.
at promoting
Yeah, I know.
themselves.
Google-
Every
Google-
week we ask that question, and comedians like, I don't know, my Facebook, whatever.
Google Matsumoto Taro,
do
and
you-
you'll find his
Paul,
dad.
Paul, do you have a website?
I don't have a website.
All right, what is
hook
your
you
Facebook?
We'll hook you up with our buddy Vin Giacavone Jr. He'll build your website.
Vinny
I was just
builds
gonna
great
say, I'm
websites.
gonna take his name down and
No,
Absolutely.
definitely. Vinny just built a new
Yeah.
website for me. I had an old one that was decent, but Vinny blew me away with the website he just built.
yeah. No, I'm excited to
Awesome,
get his info.
awesome job.
So I'll
Well,
just,
what's
I'll
your-
just plug three names. So Facebook, I'm Paul Taro on Facebook, Instagram, Paul Taro 5. And then I also have an Instagram handle, Go Comedy 100. And that posts all the information about the shows, the fun shows that we do in Stanford, and
Awesome.
we have
Oh,
different
that's
topics
awesome.
on there every show. So
Awesome. And definitely reach out. Ace and I would love to come out, especially summer months are
I
coming
will.
up.
Yeah.
And do a show. We'll
Absolutely.
I
we'll
will.
come down and do a show. It'd be a blast.
Let's do it.
Make it a
Let's
road
do
trip.
We love doing shows together. We always have a blast. So
Oh, good.
we love to come down and do something.
100%. 100%. Let's do it.
Hey,
100%. Oh,
he's
you know
done
what?
both our catchphrases tonight.
I don't know
I
if you
love
noticed
this guy.
throughout the show, we
Yeah.
were clinking glasses because we both have these catchphrases that we get stuck on. And mine is
To your point.
to your point, and you said that twice, and then you just said 100%, which
and
is
I'm wearing
his.
my
It's
T-shirt
literally
that says
on his shirt.
100%.
This would have been a great heads up because I thought I was going crazy. I
When
was
you
just
saw us
talking, and
clinking?
at one point, you guys were just looking straight at the camera, and you were both just like, "Bing." And I was like,
Yes,
what
because
was that? Are
We
these
don't
guys-
miss a beat.
No.
That's what it was.
We
You said to your point like twice, and we were like,
That's
"Yep,
why.
clink."
That's
We-
why.
And then you just said 100%. We were like, "Holy shit!"
And I guarantee you our listeners know.
we had to send him a fucking T-shirt.
we
That's it.
have a drinking game.
Yes.
With our listeners that if anybody says to your point
or
100%, they have
you
to drink.
take a drink.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's awesome.
Because
Okay,
that's
yeah.
our
just-
catchphrases.
You
and-
literally just hit both of them without even realizing
and you,
it.
I think you're the first guest that, without
Absolutely.
being prompted, said both catchphrases.
That explains a lot. I was looking at the screen, and I'm like, why are these guys both looking straight ahead
So-
yet clink the glasses at the same
So,
time?
Paul, you have to get us booked, and we will bring you 2 T-shirts.
Yeah, we'll bring you one
one
of each. Yes,
Let's do that.
absolutely. Yeah,
One of each. So,
That's
I
awesome.
mean, this was, I had a blast. I
Thanks.
mean,
yeah, I knew. Like I said, I knew
you have a
you would
great
like it.
backstory. Ace could not stop talking about how funny you were when he worked with you.
Yeah.
So I look forward to working with you. I'll definitely reach out. I have a bunch of stuff that I do in Eastern Connecticut.
Yeah.
We definitely got to come down and do your show in Stanford,
Absolutely.
man. That would
Absolutely.
be a blast. So
This
thank
was
you
so much fun. This was so much fun. Thank you guys for having
Well,
us. And
No,
awesome
dude,
show.
definitely-
you were a phenomenal guest.
And
You
we'll-
really were.
And we'll
You really were.
we'll definitely reach out and have you back on. Sometimes we do panel shows with like comics where we'll like dissect a movie or a comedy special or something.
Okay.
And we'll definitely have you on if we do one of those because
Absolutely.
they're a lot of fun.
And
They're
if
a
you're
lot of
going to
fun.
be in this area doing
Yeah,
any
let us
type of
know.
shows, let us know ahead of time.
Yeah, I will. I will for sure.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
for
it,
sure.
Paul.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
and that
Thank
was
you so
Paul.
much.
That was Paul Taro. Thank you so much for being on. That was awesome. I knew
Dude,
he was going to be a great guest.
guest.
I knew you, and I didn't even know half the like the shit that he came out with,
What a
like
great backstory
about
he's
his
got.
backstory and how he grew up. So that was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, no, he was phenomenal. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed that. I mean, that's one of the things I love about this podcast is learning about who these people are when they're not on stage. I mean,
Yeah.
you see this guy on stage, very funny, very enjoyable. But how would you know that his father's Japanese, his
Right.
mother is Irish, he grew up in Canada, in
Yep.
Japan, and now America, and who this person is. And I mean, that backstory is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
And actually, one of our watchers, listeners, Walt. Do you know Walt Zuka?
No. I've
From-
seen his name before.
From
but I-
Western Mass. He's
yeah.
he goes to all the shows at Marty Caproni's club, but he said he saw Paul in Chicopee last week, and he had an awesome set.
Yeah.
He was. Yeah. Thanks for watching, Walt. We haven't seen you in a while. I got to
Appreciate
get back
it,
out
Walt.
there. But yeah, listen, folks. I didn't get to say it at the beginning of the show, but we got to give a huge shout out. And I know we give shout outs all the time to these guys, but they gave us one, and the mutual respect between our two podcasts is just it's there. I gotta say a huge shout out to the guys at Mixtape Podcast because
oh my God, those guys are awesome.
we have become such fans of their show. They've become such fans of our show. Like literally, we get an email or a message from Matt, Twisted Kid Matt, at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Even if they didn't mention us, I'd mention them.
Yeah, no, they're so awesome, and we're working on something with them. We would love to go out to the Ohio area and actually do a show and we're trying to
Don't
nail something
say
down.
too much.
But we're trying to
'Cause if
do
it doesn't
something.
come to
Yeah,
fruition-
no, I think it could though. I think
I
it
believe
could
it
this
could.
summer.
I believe it could.
So we're gonna work out some details where we can get out there and do something with them, and you know, it was brought up that we might have to have a slide whistle off with KC Masterpiece.
I think he would win.
Because the
though.
problem is,
I think he would win.
the
though.
problem is we didn't get our slide whistles until after our episode with them.
Yes.
We ordered them before, but they didn't come in until
Yes.
after. So
They were
now
back
we have
ordered.
them. We have them, and
you haven't used them once.
no, because I don't want to take away from Kevin KC Masterpiece's, you know, thing. I want to do it with him, not against him.
No, I
So-
definitely want to do something with those guys again.
Yeah, and you got to listen. You got to listen to them. They are amazing. They do podcast. Their podcast is all about 80s and 90s. If you were a kid of the 80s and 90s, you will love it. They do like they just had one on 90s rap.
Oh, that was a great
That was
episode.
a great episode. They do a bunch of stuff about 80s and 90s. Hair metal bands, TV shows, music, everything about this. Even late 70s they'll go into.
Yes.
70s, 80s, and 90s. And they're good friends of ours, and we really love them. We really love working with them, and we've actually talked. We were on their episode on Woodstock '99 because I had been there, and we're talking about doing another crossover episode. But I'd love to do one.
They
live.
just put out a really good podcast.
Yeah.
Their most recent episode was songs you didn't know were remakes.
and that's like the fourth one that
Fourth
they've
time
done, right?
that they've
Yeah.
done that.
So again, it's a great podcast. Friends of ours, please listen to them and share them with your friends as well. So, listen, folks, we're like a couple of episodes ahead. So we're not going to be recording next week, but live anyway because we have so many episodes in the.
we may pop
in
up.
the can.
We may pop
all
up. We
right.
don't know yet.
Well, we'll see. I could always do it from the hotel. I got to go to a business meeting in Atlanta. But we've got some great guests coming up over the next couple of weeks, working on some amazing guests through June and July as well. So please, again, like Scott said at the beginning of the show, tell a friend about us, 5-star written review. It really helps more people find the podcast. We're really trying to continue to grow. So, but we appreciate everyone that listens every week and everyone that watches and pops on. Even if you pop on the live stream, a couple of times, for a couple of minutes, we really appreciate it.
And don't forget to share us with a friend. And that 5-star written review, like Ace said, is the best way to help the podcast.
Yeah. And other than that, folks, we will talk to you
Next week.